At 2:30 on March 28, 1971, specialist Michael DeFrancisco pressed his body against the sandbag wall of Bunker 5, listening to something moving through the concertina wire 40 meters out. 21 years old. 8 months at Firebase Mary Ann. 0 enemy contacts. The firebase sat on a plateau in Quang Tin Province, 300 meters across, housing 231 soldiers from the 23rd Infantry Division. Perimeter defense consisted of triple-strand concertina wire, 47 claymore mines positioned every 20 feet, and 8 reinforced bunkers with M60 machine guns covering overlapping fields of fire. Standard American firebase doctrine. It had worked for 8 months without a single attack. The wire movement stopped. DeFrancisco waited. The jungle beyond the perimeter remained silent. Temperature had dropped to 68 degrees. Humidity sat at 90%. Visibility extended maybe 15 meters before darkness swallowed everything. DeFrancisco had checked his sector 20 minutes earlier. Wire intact. Claymores positioned correctly. Nothing moving. He assumed it was an animal. Wild boar, maybe a monitor lizard, firebase. Mary Ann was too remote for assault, too far from major supply routes, too small to be worth the casualties. He was wrong. 50 meters northeast, between bunkers 4 and 5, 60 North Vietnamese army sappers lay motionless in the elephant grass. Each man had trained for 6 months specifically for this assault. Each carried an AK-47 rifle, 4 RGD-5 fragmentation grenades, 1 satchel charge containing 20 pounds of composition B explosive, and a bamboo pole charge designed to breach bunker walls. They had observed Firebase Mary Ann for 3 weeks. They knew guard rotation schedules. They knew the claymore mine positions. More importantly, they had spent the previous 4 nights crawling into the perimeter and turning those claymores around. 47 American mines now faced inward toward American bunkers. The wire DeFrancisco heard was being cut with Bangalore torpedoes. Sections of concertina collapsed silently into the dirt. The sappers moved forward in 2 columns. No talking. No light. Just 60 men crawling toward bunkers filled with sleeping Americans. Inside Firebase Mary Ann, men slept without flak jackets. Weapons leaned against bunker walls instead of being held at ready. The Firebase commander's standing order allowed soldiers to sleep in underwear during the hot season. It was a rear area firebase. Nothing ever happened here. At 2:31, the first satchel charge detonated against Bunker 4. The fire support coordinator's hooch exploded in a column of flame 40 feet high. 4 men died instantly. 12 more stumbled out of collapsing structures with their uniforms on fire. Sappers poured through the breached perimeter. In 90 seconds, they would reach the firebase's ammunition bunker. If that bunker exploded, 231 Americans would die. 1 weapon could stop them, but using it at point-blank range violated every safety protocol in the Army's arsenal. Specialist Robert Bacon reached Artillery Pit 3 and loaded something that should never be fired at humans closer than 100 meters. The M546 Beehive round weighed 46 pounds. It contained 8,000 steel flechettes. The sappers were 15 meters away. The M546 Apers T round had a specific designation that told you everything you needed to know about how it killed. Anti-personnel tracer. The complete round weighed 46 pounds with propellant. Inside the projectile casing sat 8,000 individual steel flechettes arranged in a circular pattern around a central bursting charge. Each flechette measured exactly 1 inch long and 0.07 inches in diameter, slightly thicker than a sewing needle. 4 stabilizing fins were machined into the rear third of each dart. When the round fired, those flechettes would exit the barrel at 2,200 feet per second and spread in a 30-degree cone. The flechette itself was engineered to tumble on impact. The fin design kept it stable in flight, but became unstable the moment it hit tissue. A tumbling flechette created wound channels 3 times larger than its diameter. At 100 meters, a single flechette could penetrate 3/4 of an inch of steel plate. Human tissue provided almost no resistance. The firing sequence worked through precise timing. A gunner set the time delay fuse before loading. The fuse burned during flight. At the preset distance, an explosive charge detonated inside the projectile and ejected all 8,000 flechettes forward in a spreading cone pattern. Each flechette spun and stabilized mid-flight. The impact zone at 200 meters covered a front approximately 50 meters wide. Anyone inside that zone died. The round earned its nickname from the sound the flechettes made in flight. Soldiers said it sounded like a beehive had exploded. Picatinny Arsenal developed the Beehive in 1966 as an emergency response to North Vietnamese human wave attacks. First combat use came in 1967 at Con Tien. Artillery crews loved it. It could stop company-sized assaults with a single round. But the Beehive had safety protocols written in the blood of American casualties. Minimum safe distance was 100 meters. Closer than that, the flechettes remained too clustered to predict their trajectory. The cone had not fully dispersed. Army regulations explicitly prohibited firing Beehive rounds at targets inside a firebase perimeter. The backblast alone could kill friendly soldiers. Premature detonation could turn the gun crew into shrapnel. Bacon loaded the round anyway. The sappers were now 12 meters from the ammunition bunker. They moved at 2 meters per second, crawling with their satchel charges. 6 seconds until they reached it. The M10 1A1 howitzer reload time was 8 seconds with a trained 4-man crew. Bacon's crew had 3 men. 1 was dead. 1 was wounded. Bacon worked alone. He set the fuse for minimum delay and aimed the barrel at 15-degree depression. The muzzle pointed directly at sappers 15 meters away. At that distance, the Beehive would not behave as designed. The flechettes would exit still clustered in a tight mass. Bacon would fire a 46-pound shotgun slug containing 8,000 tumbling needles traveling faster than sound. No one had ever done this before. No one knew what would happen. Bacon pulled the lanyard. The howitzer recoiled 4 feet. Muzzle flash lit up the sappers mid-crawl 15 meters away. The round traveled the distance in 0.02 of a second. The fuse detonated early. Too close for a proper burn time. The 8,000 flechettes exited the barrel still partially clustered together. They had not spread into the designed 30-degree cone. Instead, they concentrated in an impact zone 8 feet wide. 12 sappers were crawling directly in that zone. Each man was hit by more than 650 flechettes, traveling at 2,200 feet per second, faster than a pistol bullet. The sappers in the direct path died instantly. Their bodies became unrecognizable. The flechettes tumbled after first impact and continued through multiple targets. Satchel charges detonated when flechettes punctured them. Secondary explosions added to the chaos. Bamboo pole charges exploded. The North Vietnamese assault line broke. 12 men gone in 0.02 of a second. Some flechettes over-penetrated. They traveled 40 meters past their targets. 4 flechettes embedded in the sandbags of Bunker 7, 35 meters away. 2 sleeping American soldiers were 2 meters from those impacts. The remaining 38 sappers stopped moving. Their assault doctrine said to keep advancing even under artillery fire. They kept moving. 8 sappers redirected toward Artillery Pit 3. They needed to eliminate the Beehive threat. Bacon was alone at the howitzer. Reloading required a 4-man crew working together. Bacon had to do it himself. He needed to open the breech, swab the barrel, load the powder charge, load the projectile, close the breech, set the fuse, and aim. The process took 45 seconds minimum. The sappers were 25 meters away and closing at 2 meters per second. Bacon had 12 seconds before they overran his position. Beehive rounds were stored in the ammunition bunker 40 meters away. Bacon could not leave the howitzer. His dead loader had 1 Beehive round in his arms. He had been loading when a satchel charge killed him. The round was damaged. A dent in the casing. The fuse dial was cracked. A damaged beehive could detonate inside the barrel. The explosion would turn the howitzer into a bomb. Bacon would die. Everyone within 30 meters would die. Bacon loaded it anyway. The sappers were now 10 meters away. At Bunker 6 in the northeastern sector, PFC James Worthington gripped his M60 machine gun and watched sappers bypass his position in the darkness. They had not seen him. He opened fire. Tracers revealed 6 sappers 10 meters east. The M60 fired 30 rounds before jamming, common problem in the humid climate. Clearing the jam took 15 seconds. The sappers threw satchel charges at the bunker entrance. The entrance collapsed. Worthington was trapped inside with 2 wounded soldiers. In the command bunker at the center of the firebase, Colonel William Doyle lay bleeding from shrapnel wounds in his left shoulder and leg. His radio operator was dead. A satchel charge had killed him. Communication was severed. Doyle could not call for artillery support from Firebase Professional 8 kilometers away. He could not coordinate the perimeter defense. The backup radio sat 15 meters away. Doyle began crawling toward it. At the ammunition bunker in the southwest sector, 4 sappers placed pole charges against the outer sandbag wall. Sergeant Michael Spoor was the bunker guard. He had only an M16 rifle. He fired and killed 2 sappers. A K-47 rounds hit the sandbags around him. A bullet went through his right hand. The remaining sappers finished planning their pole charges. 20-second fuses were burning. In the medical bunker on the western sector, 18 wounded men already filled the space. Medic Ronald Schworer was treating a sucking chest wound when a sapper threw a grenade through the entrance. The grenade landed between wounded soldiers. Schworer had 2 seconds. He could throw it out or cover it with his body. He covered the grenade with his flak jacket and fell on top of it. The grenade detonated. Schworer died instantly. The wounded soldiers survived. At Artillery Pit 3, Bacon loaded the damaged Beehive round. He set the cracked fuse. The dial was uncertain. 8 sappers were now 15 meters out and closing. Bacon aimed using muzzle flash from a nearby firefight. He pulled the lanyard. The damaged round detonated 3 meters from the barrel. Premature. The flechettes sprayed in an erratic 45-degree cone instead of the standard 30 degrees. 3 sappers died. 2 were wounded. 3 kept advancing. The backblast knocked Bacon down. His hearing went silent. The howitzer carriage was damaged. The traverse mechanism jammed. The gun was now fixed, pointing northeast. Bacon could not adjust his aim. The pole charges at the ammunition bunker had 8 seconds until detonation. Colonel Doyle reached the backup radio. Worthington cleared his M60 jam and began firing through the collapsed bunker entrance. 3 sappers reached Artillery Pit 3. Bacon had no Beehive rounds left. He grabbed his M16, 20 rounds in the magazine. 3 sappers with satchel charges 8 meters away. If they reached the howitzer, they would destroy the only weapon that could stop the ammunition bunker assault. 42 Beehive rounds sat inside the howitzer's ready rack. If sappers detonated them at once, the explosion would level half the firebase. Bacon fired his M16 at the 3 advancing sappers. He killed 1. The magazine clicked empty. No reload. His ammunition was in a bunker 12 meters away. 2 sappers were now 5 meters from the howitzer. Bacon grabbed the howitzer rammer staff and used it like a spear. He impaled 1 sapper. The final sapper threw his satchel charge. It landed in the howitzer pit. Bacon kicked the charge out. It exploded 4 meters away. The concussion knocked him unconscious for 8 seconds. At the ammunition bunker, Sergeant Spoor could not throw grenades with his wounded hand. He used his rifle butt to knock the burning pole charges off the bunker wall. The charges exploded 2 meters away. Shrapnel hit the sandbags, but did not penetrate. 2 more sappers appeared with fresh charges. Spoor fired his M16 left-handed and killed both. The bunker was temporarily secured. Firebase Professional received Colonel Doyle's radio call at 2:35. The firebase sat 8 kilometers away. Artillery crews fired 6M10 7 175mm rounds at pre-registered coordinates. The shells landed 100 meters outside Mary Ann's perimeter. 8 North Vietnamese soldiers in the reserve assault wave died. The artillery did not stop the sappers already inside the perimeter. Bacon regained consciousness. His hearing was gone. His vision blurred. He saw movement 30 meters northeast. 6 sappers regrouping. They were moving toward the command bunker, where Colonel Doyle lay wounded. Bacon crawled to the howitzer ready rack. 3 Beehive rounds remained. The howitzer traverse was still jammed. The barrel could not rotate, but the gun was pointing northeast, perfectly aligned with the sappers. Bacon loaded a Beehive round. He set the fuse for 50 meters, standard close range setting. The sappers were now 28 meters away. The fuse might not arm correctly at that distance. The alternative was to leave the fuse at maximum delay and let the flechettes exit without dispersing. That would create a solid slug effect. 8,000 flechettes with no spread pattern. The 6 sappers moved in column formation. The column was 3 meters wide. A Beehive spread at 28 meters would cover a 12-meter front. Bacon aimed at the center of the column. He pulled the lanyard. The fuse armed correctly. The flechettes dispersed in a 15-meter cone. All 6 sappers were in the kill zone. 8,000 flechettes divided by 6 targets meant 1,333 flechettes per man on average. Death was instantaneous. The satchel charges detonated when flechettes hit them. Secondary explosions killed 4 more North Vietnamese soldiers 12 meters behind the sappers. At 2:37, Bacon fired his last Beehive round. The North Vietnamese assault broke. The remaining 12 to 15 sappers retreated through the perimeter breach. Firebase Mary Ann's perimeter had collapsed in 3 sectors, but held in 4. American casualties were 33 dead and 83 wounded. North Vietnamese casualties were estimated at 38 to 42 killed. In 7 minutes, Firebase Mary Ann had gone from sleeping garrison to battlefield morgue. 3 Beehive rounds had killed 26 enemy soldiers. But the Army would never officially acknowledge what Bacon had done. What happened next would be buried in classified reports for 40 years. Medevac helicopters arrived at 4:20. 6 flights evacuated 83 wounded soldiers. Body bags held 33 American dead. The North Vietnamese body count was 42 confirmed kills inside the perimeter. Colonel Doyle survived his wounds and was evacuated to Da Nang. Bacon was treated for concussion, perforated eardrums, and shrapnel wounds. He returned to duty 3 days later. The Army Inspector General investigated Firebase Mary Ann in April 1971. The investigation focused on how sappers breached the perimeter undetected. Findings showed that claymore mines had been turned around during prior North Vietnamese reconnaissance. Guard negligence was cited. Inadequate lighting was noted. The classified conclusion stated that Firebase Mary Ann leadership failures caused the casualties. Beehive usage was mentioned in 1 paragraph of a 47-page report. No commendations were recommended for Beehive crews. Bacon's violation of safety protocols was never officially addressed. He had broken the minimum, safe distance rule 3 times. Friendly fire near misses were documented, but not investigated. Acknowledging the violation would require either court-martial or commendation. The Army chose silence. Bacon completed his tour in August 1971. He left the Army in September 1971. He did not speak about Firebase Mary Ann for 38 years. He worked as a machinist in Pennsylvania. He married and had 2 children. He received no medals. He received no recognition. In 2009, historian Tom Marshall requested declassified Firebase Mary Ann documents. The after-action report was released with redactions. Beehive usage was confirmed in declassified testimony. Marshall contacted Bacon, who was now 61 years old. It was his first interview about March 28, 1971. Bacon's testimony was simple. I loaded it because there was nothing else to load. I fired it because they were going to kill everyone. I knew it could kill me. I knew it could kill friendlies. I did it anyway. The Army never said thank you. They never said it was wrong. They just never said anything. The M546 Beehive round was discontinued in 1975. It was replaced by cluster munitions, which were later banned under international law. Last combat use was in 1973 in Vietnam. Remaining stockpiles were destroyed in the 1990s. Firebase Mary Ann was closed in April 1971 and never reoccupied. 33 Americans died. 83 were wounded, with 12 permanently disabled. 42 North Vietnamese sappers were killed. An estimated 15 wounded North Vietnamese escaped. Bacon lost 40% of his hearing permanently. The nightmares continued until his death. Robert Bacon died on January 14, 2019, at age 71. He was buried at Arlington National Cemetery, based on his Vietnam veteran status. His headstone made no mention of Firebase Mary Ann. 3 Beehive rounds fired at point-blank range were never officially recognized. 26 enemy soldiers killed by those rounds were confirmed in declassified documents. Army acknowledgement was none. If this story moved you, hit like. Subscribe for more buried military history. Robert Bacon saved 198 soldiers by breaking every rule in the book. The Army buried his story for 40 years. Comment below where you are watching from. Do you know a veteran whose story needs to be told? Let's honor the men who did the impossible, even when their own country chose silence.